I don't know if you guys have experienced it, but you probably will at some point watch a loved one pass away. One of the greatest blessings for me of learning about angels is that all of them will go willingly with joy because the angels will help them see that. And no one died alone. Because they didn't need you just for that final moments. They have the angels to help them. One of the things that angels do that I don't think we kind of see enough is how they help God's people die. Luke 16:22, where the poor man died and was carried by the angels to Abraham's side. And then in Psalm 116, verse 15, it says, "Precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his saints." Why does God consider his followers, his saints, dying? He uses the word precious. Why does he enjoy seeing us die? Who was ministering to Jesus when he was suffering in the wilderness? Luke tells angels. Who was by the bedside of saints when they're dying? You know? Angels. How do I know that? Well, there's this book called the Encyclopedia of Angels, and there's a common occurrence that happens amongst people, especially those who are Christians. And let me read you some quotes. They talk about deathbed visions. Deathbed visions have been recorded since antiquity, and they share a common characteristic regardless of racial, cultural, educational age, and socioeconomic factors. So this is from all different types of people. What is happening in this deathbed vision? The primary purpose of these apparitions, these visions, is to beckon or command the dying to come with them. The dying person usually is happy and willing to go, especially the individual believes in an afterlife, as Christians do. And the person has been in great pain or depression, a complete turnaround of mood is observed and pain vanishes. The dying one literally seems to light up with radiance. I never knew this until my father passed away, but this is completely true, and I talked to my friends who had loved one. If you're there by the bedside, usually like a day or two before they pass, there's a sudden burst of energy that they have. Like my dad couldn't see or talk well for like weeks. All of a sudden, he's just talking. And then we were warned about this from one of my sister's friends. They said, oh, you know when your dad has this final burst of energy, he wants to talk all day, that means he's going to die soon. This is like a common thing. You could explain it scientifically, physiology. I'm sure there's some factor to it, but there's something that happens in their final kind of hurrah. They're given this burst of energy. They have this moment of clarity, and they start saying all these things when they weren't clear before, almost like these final words to all their loved ones. And then after that, before that moment, my dad was always like, he's trying to live longer. He was trying to fight. After that, he's like, I'm ready to go. And then that night, he passed away. Now, I thought this was just me. And I started talking to all my friends. And they said, oh, no, my parent or my loved one, they knew when they were going to die. It's as if when they chose to go, they died. And some of them didn't choose to go because they didn't get to say bye to all their kids, right? So they're like waiting and waiting for that last kid to come. They say their final words, and then they go. When my dad left and he said he wanted to go, he wasn't upset. He was excited. Like, what is going on there? A couple years later, you know Tony Evans, who's that prominent pastor in Oak Cliff, his wife passed away. He talked about how his wife started to see her loved ones who already passed away before she died. It's like, I see my mom. I see this. Because it's what the spiritual world is starting to come into her physical world. She's starting to see things that humans don't see to tell her to come. You know why it says in Psalms it's precious in God's eyes? Because you know who is the one doing all of that? It's the angels. You know, one of the regrets I used to have when my dad passed away was that every night my mom would sleep in the same room as he did, and then we would be in the rooms to make sure he was never by himself. The night he died, it was actually the one time my mom fell asleep in the couch, and no one was next to my dad. And that morning we all had this like, oh my gosh, how can we not have been there the moment he passed? But then the scripture, at least for me, it comforted me, and then I related to my family. No, nobody dies alone. None of God's children die alone. Even if you're in the gutter by yourself, the angels are there to help you. because what they are helping you to do is to let go of this life and to look forward to the presence of Christ. I don't know if you guys have experienced it, but you probably will at some point watch a loved one pass away. One of the greatest blessings for me of learning about angels is that all of them will go willingly with joy because the angels will help them see that. And no one died alone because they didn't need you just for that final moments. They have the angels to help them. So, for Christians, this is why we don't need to fear death. No matter our circumstance, God's angels will always take care of you. Even though we're spoiled brats and they've seen it all. Andrew, still fighting when you're 80 years old? Come on. Just come. Just come. I know you want to hold on for your kids or your grandkids. Come here. Let's go. And they kind of carry them over. And then finally, every believer at some point, they have a decision. They're like, yes, I'm ready to go. I can't wait to go. Do you guys not hear that pattern with people that die? The more people I talk to, I see that same pattern. Moment of energy for a day, and then they quickly pass soon after. It's as if the angels are pushing them to have this final closure to finally move on. Remember Tim Keller who passed away? His final day, he's like, I want to go. Right? It's this excitement builds up because of what the angels are revealing to the people who are dying. This is why Hebrews 13:2 says, do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unaware. The suggestion is that our behavior towards strangers might be directed at angels. And angels are not just random beings we shouldn't care about. They will be there in our darkest moments of life. When Jesus was starving, the angels were there to help him. When Jesus was praying in the Garden of Gethsemane, the angels were there to minister. And when you are dying all alone, the angels will be there to help you.